It's Paylene here. I'm going to talk to you about autism and how it affects me in everyday life. I'm going to be talking about foods and textures and drinks. If I can't finish on this episode, I'll do a new one. I was born very fussy and I didn't know why. It was because I was neurodiverse. I discovered 8 years ago the things that I like. So sausages, some would agree sausages are the best. I used to have Saveloys when I was young. As I got older, I discovered that it was crazy. There wasn't much meat in those. They were just all processed off cuts of meat. So I switched to Krenskis. One of my favorite foods are sausages. I like the texture of them. Lately, I've been having the cheese Krenskis because they melt in your mouth. They're really nice and they're not fake meat. The other thing is I don't like the texture of chickpeas. I can't stand them. I really love hummus. That's the funniest thing. But I don't like the texture of a chickpea. I think it's because hummus is processed chickpeas. It doesn't affect my brain too much. Avocados and sausages are one of my favorite things at the moment. I haven't eaten much avocado though. I actually forgot it in the fridge. That was so disappointing. As people may know, they don't last that long in the fridge. I've been trying to make things out of my favorite foods. Basically, one of my favorite foods, or I guess you could say herbs, are rosemary, thyme, and oregano. I can't have coriander stalks. I have no idea why. Maybe it's my hypersensitivity with autism. Probably that. For foods that I don't like, it's courgettes, to be honest. It's the texture again for me. It tastes slimy. Even when you cook it, it's soft and slimy. Nah. Same with eggplants. I really wanted to work with an eggplant. I wanted to create a new recipe with an eggplant, but I can't bear to touch the texture of it, even when I cut it. Another food that I really like is apples, but due to my hypersensitivity, I can't have too many because I'll get a whole body rash. So some neurodiverse people develop very bad hypersensitivity to things. In an episode, I'll talk about how I react heavily to medications because I think that would be really interesting to people. Drinks that I don't like is kombucha. I don't like the texture. I don't like the soda in it. I'm not actually a huge fan of soda, to be honest. I have Sprite when I get really bad stomach pains, but that's about it. For me, it's honestly the taste of the drink. I tried it and I don't like it. I don't know if other people would agree that kombucha is just flavorless and it just tastes like soda with a bit of liquid in it. The drinks that I do love are smoothies, but I prefer to make them myself. When I get bought ones, I find that they lack too many nutrients. I find if you make it from scratch, like I made a apple, spinach and orange one, and it was nice. I did add a bit too much orange, so it was very bitter. But it's all part of kind of learning, isn't it? How to make drinks properly. I find when I do buy smoothies, they just have too many ingredients and it just overkills the flavor of the actual smoothie. Or they ask you to add more things and I don't like that pressure, I guess. My other favorite drink is bubble tea. I love the texture. They just pop in your mouth. They're really tasty. They're not the healthiest. I wouldn't advise to have it all the time, which is why I only have it very occasional now. I also go through ADHD too, so I don't want to go into that ADHD topic. I'll do that for a different episode, and there'll be sections for different topics I do. I'm doing my best to stay on topics, so bear with me. A texture that I like are plushies, honestly. The reason why I really like the texture of a plushie is because you get to squish it. You get the squish and then squish in and out. It's so relaxing and calming if you're kind of stressed out. after work or something, just come home and squeeze a plushie. I mean, I work from home as an entrepreneur, so if it gets too stressful, if I can't find a supplier, then I'll hug one of my plushies. Recently, I have added 2 new additions to my plushie collection, which is 2 weighted ones. The reason why I like the texture of weighted ones is because the weight on my lap or in my arms really reduces the overthinking in my brain and also the stress in my mind. We overthink, so that's one of my coping mechanisms. By all means, after I do this episode, review the podcast if you could, because I'm trying to spread awareness for autism and other conditions. It would really help. I've got a store, paleyandheart.com. It's not launched yet, but I will keep you updated. It's close. Another food that I don't really like is, honestly, this might sound crazy to people, but pizza, because I don't like the doughy texture. At times I really like pizza. It depends. I have favorites, I guess, favorite takeaway places now, and they're mainly cafes because I find with other pizza places, they're just dough or they're too crispy. It's not like in between. I've gone to gluten-free pizzas because my tummy hurts, and it's once again the hypersensitivity. I like burgers, but if you agree with this, I don't like burgers that get soggy. Have you ever been to a cafe or restaurant and you expected a crispy, nice burger, or not too crispy? Once again, texture for me is important. The reason why is because I get very nauseated. I don't know why some people can cope with soggy burgers, but I think it's from the beetroot, the tomato, and they've just sat in too long. I like to buy buns and make my own burgers, to be honest. I've just got a partner that really loves burgers sometimes, so I just suck it up for him. Another thing to do with texture is I prefer soft cookies over crispy ones, to be honest. I've got very sensitive teeth, but I also don't like biting on hard biscuits. It can be a bit painful. I don't know why. It could just be, once again, the really bad sensitivity to things. The nicest thing about soft biscuits is that it melts in your mouth too. One of my favorite biscuits are shortbread because they melt in your mouth. They're really good. And I recently made some and I was like, whoa, I didn't think I could make some because they're one of the hardest biscuits to make. So that was pretty cool. And I didn't even use the ingredients that you would usually make for shortbread. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I was just shocked to know that I created a short biscuit. I added baking powder, which my nana kind of growled at me about because she thought, why did I do that? Why did I add baking powder? I don't know, honestly. Apparently with shortbread, do not add baking powder. That's one of the biscuits that you don't add baking powder to. I don't know if there's other ones. I made chocolate chip biscuits and I'm sure they had baking powder, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Another sort of texture I don't like is, you know how you scratch on the blackboard? But the interesting thing I wanted to say is it also applies to whiteboards. I don't think people have heard like nails on whiteboards, but they're just as terrible. I don't like the texture. I don't like the noise, but that's another episode for the noise, how it affects me. Another food that I do like is apples. I honestly like the juiciness and the crunchiness of it, the texture again. Another food I don't like, pumpkin. Here's a funny story. So, my nana isn't a huge fan of pumpkin, but she likes pumpkin soup. I'm the same. I used to not mind pumpkin, but as I got older, whether my nana influenced me, I don't know, but I couldn't stand pumpkin anymore. I really wanted to try a pumpkin pie. Honestly, it's so disappointing that I've come to the realization I don't like pumpkin anymore. But I love pumpkin soup. I don't know what it is, but it could be the texture again. Pumpkin is kind of like all mushy and bleh. But in a soup, you can smooth it out as much as you like and add milk to make it even smoother. Does anyone else add milk into their soup? It makes it much creamier and nicer anyway. I think tomato's another one too. Another drink I don't like is too bitter drinks. It's just too strong. There's not much else to say. I'm actually allergic to alcohol, and that's quite bizarre. People probably agree. Another food that I don't really like, I'm not a humongous fan of bananas. I like them in things. So I quite like baking because the textures are really cool. It's really cool having the different textures when you bake different foods. Today I tried to make chocolate. Unfortunately, whether I over or under tempered it, it didn't set, it didn't harden. So I was trying to reheat it and trying to fix it, but I came to the realization, as I was a chef before, and being an entrepreneur, is that there's no way I can save this. But the good news is it made a lovely tasting chocolate, and the texture was really amazing, like a ganache icing almost. But it's not eligible to become hard chocolates like you see in stores. So I'll just have to keep working on that, I guess. Another texture I don't like is sand in the feet. A lot of people I see on videos, they love the texture of sand through their feet. It's relaxing. To me, it's like, no, get it off. Like when I was at the beach, when I lived at Foxton Beach, after I was in the sand and in the water, I ran straight up to the where the taps were and I rinsed the heck out of my feet. I was upset at my mum and dad if it wasn't all out. I hated the texture, and the other texture thing to do with that, not liking jandals and wet feet. Nah. I know it sounds funny going squish, 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 but like, I don't like it one bit. Just because I'm very OCD about water, but that's a different episode again. So I think I'll leave it there and I'll expand more on foods, drinks, and textures for a different episode. I hope you've enjoyed a brief summary of foods, drinks, and textures I'd like and dislike. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you like it, please follow me. You'll get updated when I do go on. I'm sorry I haven't been on very much. I have been very unwell. And just one little thing at the end. Check out paleonheart.com. It's going to be to do with all this, being an entrepreneur. I'm going to go now, so Paleon says goodbye.